I don't believe in trends. I'm not a trendy person. I don't care what's popular now. I care what's good. So that would be the first thing. This really worked for me. In addition to growing up on a farm, my dad was a pharmacist. And so we got to learn a lot about the farm and plants and how you do things naturally. Like he believes in Epsom salt bath soap can help anybody with almost anything. When I became a teenager, my skin just was really bad. I mean, it was just red and prickly and angry, and I had bumps everywhere from my chest to the back of my arms, and literally nothing in the pharmacy worked. We had an aromatherapist come in one class and teach us a little bit about aromatherapy. She convinced me to try plant oils on my face. Within a couple of weeks, my skin completely cleared up. And when I pulled away from all of the mass-made, heavily marketed stuff, I really had beautiful skin and didn't even need to wear that much makeup anymore.
Welcome to What Beauty Founders Don't Know, a podcast formerly known as JumpStart. Here, women-led, early-stage beauty brands learn counterintuitive insights to accelerate their profitability and revenue to $20 to $50 million and even $100 million without spending a fortune on ads, influencers, and reckless distribution. With your host, Rohit Banota, ex-P&G and founder of Toronto-based Jump Accelerator. Together, let's create a more conscious, humane, and beautiful planet. A woman's world. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell notifications, and leave a review.
Hey Suzanne, I welcome you to What Beauty Founders Do Not Know podcast, formerly known as JumpStart Beauty Brand. For all my listeners and viewers of this episode, Suzanne is an ahead of the curve, original gangster, the OG of organic and plant-based beauty. She grew up in a farm in Georgia, and she was a lawyer in her previous life. She brings the same level of diligence to her organic beauty brand if she has carried forward something from being a lawyer. She lives with her 2 sons and her husband. Skincare was just a hobby for her before she received a nudge from her husband to make it a full-time entrepreneurial venture. So Suzanne, over to you. Please feel free to introduce yourself and tell us your story. I think you're one of the very few founders that I must have interacted who was a lawyer and then moved into organic beauty. Was it to reserve a seat in heaven that you decided, I'm going to launch an organic beauty brand and help out millions of women? Over to you.
Well, first of all, you did a great job on the introduction. Thank you. And the type of law I practice actually helped people. I did small business and estate planning. So I helped people pass on their businesses, pass on their farms. So I didn't do anything that was litigious. Out there.
So you never had the risk of going to hell, right? So it wasn't like an insurance of something. No.
But I do think that having a legal degree really helped with our success in a way that I could not have understood before we started, from like understanding regulatory standards and the ever-changing landscape to negotiating contracts with a retailer and influencer. I mean, I feel like we have to have a contract for everything down to our photographer. So we're constantly doing legal work still. And that really helped us have a solid foundation. That I think when I've talked to my other beauty brand founders and I talk about liability insurance or the different contracts, reading stuff with your retailer, that's the part a lot of them maybe skip over or are confused about. So as funny as it does seem, I think that my ability to research and being rather cynical, like I don't just take what you tell me, I'm going to research and dive into it, has really helped us stand out for who we are today.
How much research did you do on me before you?
I did actually read your book on the mistakes that founders make. It did help me to look at some things for next year.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Cool. So let's get to your story. So obviously you bring diligence. As a lawyer, you must have read and gone through. And I'm very fascinated by how you decided to launch back then when organic beauty, and I was listening to you on a podcast, and you very rightly pointed out, like, people are wondering if it's going to be a trend or a fad, and will it fade away like most of the trends. And I'll be very honest, even till 6 or 7 years back, this used to be a topic. Can organic ever become mainstream, or is it just a passing fad? This was a continuous debate. I think it is settled now. So how did you, like, what was that gave you that push or that belief that this is going to work out?
Well, so one, I don't believe in trends. I'm not a trendy person at all. I believe in elegance, minimalism, and sticking with what's true for now to 100 years from now. So I'm not a trendy person. I don't care what's popular now. I care what's good. So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing is that this really worked for me. In addition to growing up on a farm, my dad was a pharmacist. So he had a pharmacy, he had multiple pharmacies. So he was the lead pharmacist. And so we got to learn a lot about the farm and plants and how you do things naturally. Like he believes in Epsom salt bath soap can help anybody with almost anything. And that always makes me laugh. And then we had the science part of it. So when I became a teenager, my skin just was really bad. I mean, it was just red and prickly and angry, and I had bumps everywhere from my chest to the back of my arms, and literally nothing in the pharmacy worked. I mean, nothing. He felt really frustrated. I felt really frustrated. He reached out to all of his dermatologist friends. Nothing worked. And so when I got into law school, I was in law school in Dallas, Texas. And so it was so fun to have all of these beautiful stores and any and everything. I mean, the best brands, the most expensive brands, everything at your disposal. And so I called him and we talked it through and decided to start going down some of those avenues. Well, again, nothing helped. All I could do was cover it up. So I started taking yoga when I was in law school to reduce stress. And we had an aromatherapist come in one class and teach us a little bit about aromatherapy. She convinced me to try plant oils on my face, which I can't tell you how scared and nervous I was to do that. But within a couple of weeks, my skin completely cleared up. And when I pulled away from all of the mass made, heavily marketed stuff, I really had beautiful skin and didn't even need to wear that much makeup anymore. So it was a real revelation for me. And I just think things that work don't go away.
Love it. Love it. You're so clear with your story too. No wonder you were a lawyer, right? So see, you very crisp and clear. You have to make your arguments in a finite amount of time, right? So perfect. Love it. Tell me one thing. And I think even though it wasn't a trend, and for somebody like you who doesn't go after trends, but maybe what worked for you at that point in time was, like I said, you're ahead of the curve because of personal experience, but also not many people were doing it. And what is so interesting is that one of the drawbacks that indie beauty founders have nowadays when they take a personal experience to launch a brand is they underestimate competition, because they might not have been to Sephora's or Ulta or Detox Market or where clean beauty brands sell. They might be using a mainstream brand and they might say, oh, there's nothing that cures my stuff, let me launch something. And then they would realize One Love Organics has been there for last 10, 15 years, right? So they underestimate competition. In your case, since you were the daughter of a pharmacist, you explored every brand that must have been available in a drugstore, right? So your
Yeah.
competitive analysis was like a thing in the home, right? Thing in the house. From your teenage, you were exposed to all that stuff. So, which also must have played a very crucial role. You would have understood those products, what is inside them, just by default. I'm not saying that you did not work hard, but because you were exposed to that environment. Did that play a role? Because every time somebody ventures into a new subject, and I'm not saying plant based is new for you, but there is that initial hurdle where some terminology hits you, some concepts hit you, and they can mentally block you from delving further. But if you have some initial knowledge, it's easier to dive deeper into a subject, right? So did you feel that when it finally came time for you to launch your skincare brand or even pursue the hobby in full swing, that initial exposure to the pharmacy, chemistry, etc., helped a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It did.
Perfect. Well, One word answers is great. Like I said, you're very succinct and I love it. Perfect. So let's move to very intrigued by your EcoCert lab. Like you're the only EcoCert lab in whole of Georgia, if I'm right.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. And this is what I feel indie beauty founders don't get. Like they, and I'm not saying these things are not real. They sometimes worry too much about mainstream beauty brands, their marketing, their advertising. They forget what's in their control, right? And
Yes.
I absolutely love the fact that you went all in with your lab, because if somebody's going to buy your brand, of course your story will resonate, but I think it's the formulations, the integrity of the formulation that you decided not to compromise. That is just my observation. What else do you feel, or you even feel that people, when they outsource to other labs, they're not doing justice to the cause that drove them to launch a beauty brand?
Well, I think you do make an excellent point. We did focus on in house formulation and manufacturing, and it really blew my mind later to know that most beauty brands don't do that. Their focus is on selling and marketing, and that's not my strongest point. So that was very interesting to me to learn that the focus is different. And then I just feel like, having been in this business, like you said, for almost 15 years, you really have to have a comprehensive knowledge of the ingredients, how things are made, how things work together to really educate and build that credibility and trust with both consumers and retailers. So honestly, I'm still, after this time and having so many beauty founder friends, I don't understand where and how they learn the science of skincare and how it's made and how it works and how it's being sourced and the percentages and the testing. That's where we focused our time, efforts, and energy and resources. And I think that's why we've been successful, is we really took the path. What's the poem about, the taking
The
the
road
long
less taken.
so we definitely took the road less taken.
I have the book here too. The poem is Road Less Taken, and the book is The Road Less Traveled. Yeah,
Right.
which is written by a therapist. I love it. But that's genius. How can you compete with when it comes to the marketing budget of a big brand? If you can create formulations, and I'm very intrigued by you saying that those beauty founders still do not understand the science of skincare. Is it because they are not fully immersed because they don't have their own lab? Because if you are fully immersed and if you work on it, you have no choice but to understand. Like you will get knowledge by default too, right? What would you attribute it to? Because since they're outsourcing what should have been their core and they're not fully immersed in it, could it be one of the reasons that they do not quite perfect the science of formulation?
Well, I mean, most people don't, and they don't have the time, the interest, or the experts to. And I get that. Like, I don't understand Facebook ads and the whole influencer thing and all that. So it's not a dig on anybody. I just didn't understand when this started that most skincare brands are marketing vehicles for someone else's skincare, right?
That's so interesting. You're absolutely right. I know that you started because you had your own problem. You had to come up with formulations that are absolutely perfect. And obviously you have learned over years also. You must have perfected your formulations or taken them a notch higher or two. Instead of going after influencers or marketing or advertising, you focused on what you could control and your lab. Tell us more about your lab. Two things first. Now, there are some founders who do formulate themselves, but in their kitchen, right? How would formulating in your own lab differ from formulating in a kitchen for, let's say, a 6 or 7 figure brand? She doesn't have the resources. How would you? Obviously, I get it that there'll be processes in a lab, there'll be precise measurement, etc. But is that all there is to it? Like difference between a kitchen and a lab, and then a deep dive into your lab. Yeah, if you
Well, I've done both. I have formulated for my kitchen when it was a hobby, and it took time to invest in those things that make it more elegant.
elegant, yeah, yeah.
Right. Yes. Or scientific. So when I started out in the kitchen, I would study the different properties of the plant oils and see how they would feel and their viscosity and the smell. And I would blend essential oils. So it was a very hands on, immersive sensory experience of how things felt, smelled, removed. So it was more about the experience. Then when I moved to having my own lab, I invested in things like a homogenizer that can make emulsions. We invested in a pH meter so I could read the pH. We invested in a little piece of equipment that helps you read the rancidity of oils, which I didn't have before, so it'll show you the peroxide value. We invested in little ovens that you can put and see how stable your formula is once heated. And then we got a little freezer so you could freeze them, heat them, thaw them, that sort of thing. So it just moved from the experience and sensory to more technical over time. So my lab's really small. I mean, when people come and visit, it's the size of a small room. But I have all the equipment that I need. I have sample cabinets. I have my file cabinets that you take notes. For us to perfect one formula, we do at least 40 to 50 rounds.
Wow. And how much time does it usually take?
2 years.
That's my magic number. Every beauty entrepreneur who's made it, when I ask them how much time you deliberated on your formulation, 2 years comes again and again. Vintner's daughter, April, I was listening to her on a podcast. She said the same thing. And others that I've spoken to myself, a few that I've read about, everybody says exactly the same thing, 2 years. Is that your magic number too now? Like in your mind, 2 years?
Sometimes it can take longer for sure. I've never done it faster.
And I think there's a lesson there that there are no shortcuts.
To have something that's really viable on the market with repeat purchase, you shouldn't even want to shortcut.
But there's a flip side to it too. There are no guarantees either, right? So I mean, it will take time. You'll spend 2 years and then you never know what's going to happen, because I'm pretty sure even after spending 2 years, even though all of your hero products are amazing, there must have been a few surprises that you must have had.
Well, for sure. You know, what is funny, speaking of Vintner's daughter, when the second round of products that I worked on was a heavily infused over many, many months with dried fresh herbs and botanicals active serum. And it was beautiful and amazing, and the work it took to put into. So I really respect what she's done, because I know what it takes to infuse that into an oil, and it's beautiful and it's very creative, and I thought it was wonderfully effective. But when we launched it, people did not get it or understand it for the amount of work and the process it took to do it, because there's a lot of infusion and time and watching and testing that goes on for that. So
And
that's just one example of putting a lot of time and research into something that was just maybe a little ahead of its time.
that's just an amazing insight. Obviously, it was ahead of its time. It was great for them too, but they didn't get it. Is that what you're saying? Now, what is it that they did not get? Was it like the benefit would have been over certain few weeks or months? Was there a routine required, like they were not compliant with the routine? Or what part they did not use it right? What was the issue? You said that it wasn't a success, massive success right off the bat.
I think they didn't understand the unique infusion process, because, I mean, you also know that you can take a plant oil and drop in extracts that you buy from an ingredient manufacturer. The infusion process of really high end herbs that are fresh but dried, you can't infuse fresh herbs, you have to dry them first. So just understanding the uniqueness and the efficacy of that.
Wow, I love it. You infused and you said there was efficacy. So they didn't perceive the efficacy straight away. If the product was infused and there was a rationale for infusing it, and that rationale connected to the end result that the consumer would get, right? So, what was the gap there then? Like, they did not use it right, or there was some health benefit which they might not realize right away, but but that health benefit is far better than any other product they would have used.
At the time, yes, but I think the disconnection there was oils were still not widespread at this point. There was not the facial oil understanding that there is now. So I think it was, to answer you more succinctly, It was an aversion to the texture of the oil.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
People wanted the water-based serums that they had been using forever.
Yeah.
Oils were not widely accepted at this time.
Love it. Love it. So it was the trials. Not enough trials happened because they didn't get, and there was an aversion to oils, right? But those who tried, did they then started going gaga and they eventually pulled the other guys in?
Well, we discontinued that product because it never gained enough traction for the amount of labor and space that took.
That's quite a learning, right? So you can offer all the quality in the world, and then the consumer, because of some idea they have in their minds, right, which might not be correct, they might not try or adopt it. Perfect, perfect. Well, I have to say you have very measured responses. So coming to the assumptions, every beauty founder, any entrepreneur, when they venture or in any endeavor that you do, we have certain assumptions, right? If I do this, I will succeed, especially when you're not making it big, like you just starting out, and you have certain ideas of how you will succeed, right? Like if I do A, B, C, D, E, I will achieve my goals. In 3 years, I'll retire. I'll be on Malibu or someplace on the beach. So, what were those couple of assumptions that you had trying to, when you thought of growing your beauty brand and the reason it'll grow, which eventually got very refined or they were proven wrong? And that's your learning.
Well, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of conflicting opinions. So we decided early on staying small and not taking on outside investors, not trying to push growth, that we would focus on product quality and outstanding customer service. And we would not stray from those two principles, and that eventually it would grow into something real and long lasting.
And it did.
And it did.
Yeah. Perfect. And
Thankfully.
how long did it take you to gain traction? Was it like you launched? I was listening to you on another podcast, and you were saying stuff like you launched a few products, then those women started asking for, can you give me this, can you give me that? But that's also a phase. Was there a phase where like things stalled a little bit and then it took you time to gain traction, or was it like you launched, consumers kept coming in, and the older one kept asking for more, and it has been like that ever since?
Well, at first, it was a curve to explain what we were doing. We launched with a waterless wonder balm that was multitasking and was the solid, thick balm that consumers, again, didn't totally understand, but we explained it enough that it's still one of our top sellers today. And we had a powdered mask that you mixed with water or yogurt. And that did cause enough confusion that we pivoted and changed that into a creamy formula that you just squirt out of a tube. So we did do some pivoting and listening. Well, the interesting thing is when we started, social media and digital ads and influencers were not even a thing. I looked this up just to confirm, but Instagram didn't start to get popular until 2012. We launched in
Yeah.
2010. So we didn't even have those things as a platform. Nobody was really buying off Facebook at that time. It was more of a reunion picture sharing platform. So we did not have that. And as far as retailers, what was really interesting to me is so many retailers were like, if you're around in 3 years, we'll talk. And I would say, well, how am I supposed to make it for 3 years with no retailers? And they were like, that's really the whole test. There were definitely many times of doubt and worry. But at the same time, I think what our strength was is we were one of the very few natural and organic brands out there that even existed. And to me, like looking back in history, I like to read a lot of memoirs, especially from beauty founders, and read their stories and what happened and how things were sold. And throughout most of history, companies have marketed and told people what they wanted. This is one of the very few times in consumer history with consumer personal goods that I see where the consumer told or demanded what they wanted. So there was a time when they had demand and not a lot of products available. Like there's a Yahoo article that says like there were 13 natural and organic brands. Well, we were one of those 13 back in 2013, 14 when this really started to take on.
In total, 13 brands? In
13.
US? Wow.
And so that's when retailers like Credo, we had been around, and then Credo was trying to find these clean and natural brands. So there became a time where there was demand and not a lot of choices. It's obviously changed as everyone's jumped on the boat now. So I think it was kind of a tundra for 3 years, trying to
Wow.
convince people and show people and educate people. And then all of a sudden the demand caught up and we were put into great retailers.
Wow. And then you moved off the shelf right from day one because the demand was there. How does it compare to now? When you launch with a new retailer now, do you get the same offtake?
We don't launch with many new retailers. I'll just say that. And that's one thing, again, when I talk to other brand founders, I let them know that you have to really understand how you're moving product for the retailer. It becomes a totally different and new question of how you're moving your products off their shelves, and they expect it. I like to stick with where I think we can succeed and grow those partnerships like Blue Mercury, Credo, Heyday, instead of trying to expand into something that our brand may not be the best fit for.
Is it because Blue Mercury or Credo, they have staff that will educate the consumers on your behalf? Or is it just that they get the right kind of consumer that is fit with your brand?
It's a good match. We have a good match for consumers, and I've spent years at this point with their team offering in-store sales support. We did have a collection in Ulta through the Credo Beauty Collection, and even contemplating supporting them with in-store sales support is mind-blowing, you know? So you have to really, people get really excited and they're like, hey, we got in Whole Foods. And I'm like, how are you going to stay in Whole
I
Foods?
agree. That's $1 million question. Founders don't realize that getting on the shelf is 5% of the job.
Yes.
Moving off the shelf is the real thing. Tell me one thing. I've always been intrigued by this. Let's say you are in Credo. In 1 month's time, there's no fixed answer for this. How many products in numbers do you think, or percentage wise, do you think an in store sales rep or these staff of Credo would influence sales for? The total sales that you get from the store in 1 month, like these sales to the consumers, what percentage of that would be influenced by the staff recommending somebody? And how does that recommendation take place? Does the consumer ask or they do it on their own? They send an email promoting you first, and then somebody comes and then the conversation happens. Just out of curiosity.
I don't have a concrete answer for that.
It's difficult, I know, but yeah, next time if you get a chance you can just ask them or give you the CCTV footage.
Well, I wonder too if they would even tell me, if they know. Who
Yeah, yeah.
knows? I have been with most of these retailers since they started. We were around before they were. So I have been again with these people since the beginning. So I don't know that.
Yeah,
I know
and
Blue Mercury, it's been a lot of, we've been with them since 2016, and that's been a lot of training, gratis, in-store sales support, much different path than someone we started off with when they started. That's the
I
best
agree.
answer I have. I don't know if anybody would even answer me with what you asked.
And you know what? It can be a very stupid question. I was just trying to see what's the last conversation before somebody tries your brand or picks up the product from the shelf. Obviously, if they're repeat consumers or if they've seen your brand on social or on a website, they don't need an introduction. But I always wonder what percentage of new consumers would ask the rep or the staff would intervene. I also know that they would send emails, they would have flyers, they would do all that stuff. So that, and if they understand your brand better, they will do a much better job of speaking about you in all the communication that they do.
I don't think it's a stupid question. I don't think it's an easily measured question.
Yeah.
Who's going to actually answer that honestly? That, oh, our sales staff actually recommends this brand that brought us lunch today. I don't know how honest of an answer you're going to get.
Especially if they know that you have the goodies that they need. you're going to give them free products. So they're all going to say, oh, I did it. I told one customer, right?
Right.
Tell me one thing. You speak about small micro batches. Now, this could just be syntax, or is there a difference between small batch and a small micro batch?
Yes. So small would be our normal production size is around 5 to 10,000 pieces, right? And that's, as most people know, that's a small batch for
That's a small
sure.
batch, yeah.
A lot of these people will make 25,000 pieces as a minimum. And so being able to make batches on demand and seasonally just means it's that much more fresher, has a longer expiration date and shelf life. So it's really beneficial for us as a business and the consumer. The micro batches is where we really come in and exceed because we can make 500 pieces. We can
Wow.
try new things. We can send it out to just our VIP customers on a first come, first served basis and then send out a questionnaire behind it. So we're able to really take a more thoughtful approach and be able to try things that other brands, if you were to say to me as a business person, hey, let's try this, but the minimum is 10,000 pieces, I can't do that. I can't take that big of a risk. So it just allows us again to be more unique, to take a few more risks, and to really listen to our consumers and get feedback. So I think that's just one of the things. And no, it's not marketing, it's real. We're able to produce in our own facility.
I love it. I'm also very intrigued by the fact that you started way ahead of the others in 2010 and 9 now, and you're all about your own lab, organic formulations, plant-based formulations, the integrity of the formula. Over these last 14, 15 years, has your knowledge of the formulation, if not the formulation itself for a particular product, gone up 10x, and has the formulation also evolved? Because there are two kinds of beauty founders. When I listen to them, some say this hero product of mine has the exact same formula that it had 10 years back, and people love it. Whereas the others, they say, we have been able to perfect it. We try new things, like you were talking about micro batches, etc. And that is what gives us the edge over these new people who venture into organic or whatever, clean or plant based or anything else that they're talking about for their formulation. Is that right? Or the formulation is the same or almost the same that you had 10 years or 15 years back?
If I can ever make something better, I do. Everybody that's in my circle laughs at me because I'm just never quite satisfied. And I also have a consulting chemist who's amazing. And I'll send things to her and say, hey, can we do this better? Like, how can we do this better? And like our original formula of Skin Savior Balm has some issues. When it gets cold, the little mango butter forms in small little beads and you have to break them down with your hands. But we've done a million different ways and it just doesn't work the same when we change the formula. But then other things I've been able to tweak and perfect, and it's amazing. But believe you me, we are always working on and looking at, can this be better? And sometimes the answer is just not yet. We haven't found a way yet. Like our best sellers are Botanical Bee Cleansing Oil. And I did change the formula one time and our customers just went cuckoo and were not happy with me at all. So I changed it back. So to answer your question, I love to learn and look and improve. But then I can be very slow to actually make changes unless I really see that it's better.
Love it. And I'll poke you one last time on this. I hope you don't mind. So, of course, with time, with 15 years, you have learned how to do business better, to be consistent, manage inventory, offer consistently high quality formulations, etc. But if somebody is not evolving their formulations, what is the edge you have with the value you add to a consumer versus a new organic skincare, plant based skincare brand that launches today? What would you say your edge would be if you haven't evolved your formulation or perfected your formulation. It could be that you've launched many more products versus somebody who's a newbie, right? You've understood stability, etc., perfecting the formulations, bringing it all together, solving different kinds of problems. So you could be one go-to place for your consumers, which the newbie won't be because it'll take them time. But when it comes to one particular formulation, one product, if somebody decides to launch the same today, what would be your edge then?
Absolutely certification. I mean, we decided to go with the largest, most globally prestigious accepted certification through EcoCert and Cosmos. They check every single ingredient, final formulation, packaging, our manufacturing processes, our marketing, and they come visually inspect us once a year. So it's really rigorous. I still don't know why that many beauty brands don't do it. It is a huge investment. It's a lot of paperwork and a lot of proof, lots of proof. They don't take anything for like one ingredient. The ingredient manufacturer has to show what happens from sourcing to final product and any solvents that are used, how it's stored. Like it's so in depth. I can see why people don't do it, but at the same time, I'm not sure why more people don't do it. But that's definitely our edge is show me somebody else who's got 15 years of experience with the highest global certification standard for natural and organic beauty.
I love it. Tell me one thing. Did you when you launch, did you decide to have EcoCert right away, or was it during the journey?
It was definitely during the journey. We launched in 2010 and then we started working on this in 2013. So again, it took us 3 years to make sure we were going to be in business, things were catching on and we could afford the certification. When the debate started about the regulations and the standards and who's saying this is clean and what are you saying, and just again being an attorney, I wanted to have a standard. And here it is. It's globally accepted. I'm not going to argue with you about the fine points because I don't know. That's not my job.
You have just shown hope to a few people. Now, since you've said that it's through the journey, others can also improve. Of course, it's a choice, right? They're not making. So I think your biggest, like you said, the advantage is that you have held yourself accountable to the highest degree of standard possible year and year again and never taken anything for granted. And that's the USP to the consumer, right?
Yes.
Because people, when business scales up, they might want to use economies of scale, they might want to buy some ingredients cheaper, A, B, C, D, E, they might compromise here and there. So yeah, that's the integrity you have, which you offer to the consumer. So that's awesome. What is the next big goal, or do you have a big goal? I mean, there's no need to have a big goal. If you're doing well sustainably and profitably in your business, that's more than enough. But obviously, you might decide to touch more lives. You might want to make a difference to more consumers who absolutely would benefit from your products versus anybody else. If you have such a goal to expand or grow, what do you think is the biggest hurdle to going there?
Right now, at this moment in time, just the sheer number of brands that are coming out there. And we never go from a negative angle. That's just not who we are. We more attract our customers. But I do wish people understood a little bit more about celebrity brands and these quick, massive brands that come about overnight. I wish there was a little bit more transparency just so that people could actually choose what's good for them. So I think right now it's just the sheer amount of brands that are coming out.
That's like a challenge you feel
Yeah.
because with a brand like yours, which is not flimsy, somebody has to really understand the effort and the diligence you put in, right? Versus a celebrity brand where it's just the name that sells, people might not even delve deeper. So, and you are encouraging people actually to take a look at ingredients and stuff like that, which in your case, they don't need to because you're eco certified, right? So, in your case, EcoCert is doing that job for you. But then you are actually educating consumers that whatever they are putting on their bodies, they should check the ingredients, etc. So I'm with you. And celebrities tend to not do that. They want to use their status versus educating the consumers on actual ingredients. So I'm absolutely with you. Perfect, perfect. So now tell me, was there a time in your life when the going got really tough with your venture? or has it been like decently profitable, sustainable? And yes, there might be issues here and there, but nothing too drastic, like where you felt, I don't think we're going to make it out of this. I wouldn't say alive, but with a venture still doing good. And what is it that pulled you through?
So, in 2016, we did have one of the largest retailers in the country convince us over 2 years to help them create their first EcoCert certified line. And I had the formulation experience and the manufacturing facility to do that. I did definitely have some reservations, but they showed me the potential and the upside. And again, it took me a couple of years of working with them, talking with them, flying to their headquarters, but I eventually did it. It's a huge mistake. It was a disaster. In the middle of this, the buyer left. A new buyer came in with a totally different vision. They didn't live up to really any of their promises. And even though my husband and I are both attorneys, we quickly learned that you don't have the time or the resources to really fight anything. We put lots of work and lots of inventory into this, and it came to a point where I just was praying to get out of it intact. So it didn't have anything to do with One Love. It was more of a manufacturing decision. And it was not a good decision.
And did you end up losing a lot of money over this?
I lost a lot of time, sanity, resources.
It doesn't seem like something, it might have been stressful, but it doesn't seem like it was going to end your business, right?
No, not in our business. I definitely learned a valuable lesson. So, like, I like to tell myself I would rather try things and learn, and I did.
Perfect. Also, sometimes you got to pay the price. If it's not a big price, there's nothing wrong with it. Moving on to the last section, Suzanne, which is a speed round. I'll ask you 4 or 5 very quick questions, and you got to just respond with 1, 2, or 3 word answers, like whatever comes first to your mind. And you are free to choose an expletive too. If you want to abuse, that's fine. This show is not for kids. When I upload, I mention it's not for kids. So you can say whatever you want. Let's start with the first one. What's fake in the organic beauty market, especially in early stage organic beauty market?
Overhyped claims.
Love it. Like it's organic and it also in 7 days it'll change your skin or stuff like that?
Yes.
Perfect. What's your favorite movie quote of all time?
Can't handle the truth.
I love that.
Handle the truth.
Yeah, handle the truth. Yeah. So direct to consumer or omni channel?
Omni-channel.
Wow. And why is that? I'm slightly curious. You have such integrity with your products, lab, etc. And like you can best educate them on your own. So why omni channel? Do you see that there's a limit to DTC?
It's not a limit. I love working with estheticians, and we have so many great spa accounts, and they're just fun to work with. And they've actually given me such good feedback and have helped me with ideas for new products. I just feel like it wouldn't be the same if I didn't have like my group.
I love it. Spa or retailers then? Like what would you prefer? Spa versus a brick and mortar retailer, like where people just go and shop?
I like both.
Of
I,
course.
I like getting guided advice from an esthetician, but I also just love being able to pop in and look at things and smell things and touch things without anybody talking to me.
Do you want to leave Suzanne's legacy with One Love Organics, or you want to sell the brand for, let's say, I know somebody actually who might be interested in paying $100 million for your brand?
Legacy.
Legacy. Okay, cool. So you see, you have integrity. You're so consistent, right? You're also very smart. Clean beauty, one word. What's your response to clean beauty?
Clean claims, real proof.
No proof, right? They don't have any proof?
No, just
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah. Love it, love it. I have my reservations. Like, I'm absolutely with you. There needs to be standardization of clean, and it has to be documented. Well, we have come to the end of this episode. Suzanne, you were absolutely wonderful. Your responses were very measured and thoughtful. You spoke about formulations and how every year you hold your brand towards the highest standard that exists in beauty and personal care. So I absolutely love it. But I also love the fact how you managed to pack a complete answer in one sentence without rambling on and on. That's a talent that I do not have. Any message that you want to give out to the listeners and viewers?
We do have some really fun launches that are about to come out that I have worked on forever. So stay tuned first quarter.
Perfect. So I would recommend everyone to go on One Love Organics site and subscribe. Those who do not buy from One Love Organics, they're not buying as of now. And wait for those amazing launches that Suzanne is going to come up with. Well, thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this What Beauty Founders Don't Know podcast for amazing guests and insights on growing your beauty brand. Visit jumpaccelerator.com and take the quiz to find out how ready you are to make the jump to $20 to $50 million plus dollars. And above all, don't miss out on your free online course taken by hundreds of successful beauty founders. Sign up for your free online course now. Till the next episode.